The station shook so hard that the lights flickered and died for a moment. When they came back on, they were red. Emergency red. The kind of red that meant death was coming. Commander Ho grabbed the wall to steady himself. Around him, his soldiers were checking their weapons and looking at each other with fear in their eyes. They were good men and women. They had trained for years, but none of them had ever faced the before. "Report," Ho said into his communicator. "Sir, we have 12 warships surrounding the station. They are not responding to our messages. We believe they will attack within minutes." Ho closed his eyes for just 1 second. 12 warships. His station had maybe 200 soldiers. The math was simple and terrible. "Begin civilian evacuation immediately," he ordered. "All non-combat personnel to the escape pods. Priority goes to children and medical staff." The alarms started screaming. Red lights spun on every wall. People began running through the corridors, some crying, some silent with shock. Ho watched them go and felt his heart grow heavy. Many of these people would not make it. He knew this, but he would give them every second he could. On the observation deck, high above the main corridors, Princess of the stood watching through the great glass window. She was tall and thin, with skin that glowed soft blue in the emergency lights. Her eyes were large and silver, and they saw everything. "Your Highness, we must go to the escape pods," her guard said. His name was, and he had served her family for 40 years. "No," said simply. "Your Highness." "I said no." Her voice was calm but firm. "I will not run while others die to protect me. I will watch, I will remember, and I will tell my people what I have seen here today." Wanted to argue, but he knew that look in her eyes. The princess had made her choice. He stepped back and stood ready to protect her, even though he knew his old body was no match for soldiers. Below, Ho gathered his squad in the main corridor that led to the docking bay. This was where they would come. This was where the line had to be held. "Listen to me," he said to his soldiers. "The evacuation will take 30 minutes. We need to hold this corridor for 30 minutes. That is all. 30 minutes and hundreds of innocent people will live. Can you give me 30 minutes? "Yes, sir," they shouted back. But Ho could see the truth in their eyes. They were scared. There were monsters from the dark spaces between stars. They stood 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like black metal. Their teeth could bite through armor. Their claws could tear a man in half. Stories said they felt no pain and knew no mercy. The first explosion came from the docking bay. They had arrived. "Hold the line," Ho screamed, and his soldiers opened fire. The corridor filled with light and sound. Energy beams flew back and forth, burning holes in walls and floors. Ho saw the first soldier step through the smoke, and his blood went cold. The stories were true. The creature was huge and black and terrible. Its 4 arms held 4 weapons, and its eyes glowed red like dying stars. A young soldier named Dong was the first to fall. A beam caught him in the chest, and he dropped without a sound. Then Mira went down, then Han Sol, then 3 more whose names Ho would never forget. "Keep firing," Ho ordered, but his voice was getting lost in the noise. They pushed forward step by step. For everyone that fell, 2 more appeared. Ho's squad was melting away like snow in summer. He grabbed a fallen soldier's rifle and fired with both hands, screaming with rage and fear and desperate hope. Up on the observation deck, watched with wide eyes. She had never seen humans fight before. Her people, though, were an old and peaceful race. They solved problems with words and wisdom. They had not fought a war in 10,000 years. When they spoke of humans, they called them young and weak and fragile, just another small species trying to survive in a dangerous galaxy. But what saw now was not weak. What she saw was not fragile. She watched the human commander rally his dying squad again and again. She watched him drag wounded soldiers to cover while still firing at the enemy. She watched him take a hit to his shoulder and keep fighting as if nothing had happened. She whispered, "Are you seeing this?" "Yes, Your Highness." "They are dying. They know they are dying, but they do not stop. No, Your Highness, they do not. Pressed her hand against the cold glass of the window. Below, another human fell. Then another. The floor was covered with bodies now, both human and. The corridor was filling with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Ho looked around and counted his remaining soldiers. 7. He had started with 42. Fall back to the second position, he ordered. They retreated, firing as they went. The followed, their terrible forms moving through the smoke like demons from an old nightmare. Ho felt blood running down his arm from his shoulder wound, but he ignored it. Pain was just a feeling. Feelings could be controlled. At the second position, they made another stand. The corridor was narrower here, which helped. They could not bring all their numbers to bear, but they were still coming, still pushing, still killing. One, Ho's second in command, took a hit to the leg and went down. Ho grabbed him and pulled him behind a barricade. Sir, one gasped, you need to go get to the escape pods. Shut up and keep shooting, Ho said. Sir, please. I said shut up. Ho slapped a fresh energy pack into one's rifle and put it back in his hands. We hold for 30 minutes. That was the promise. We keep our promises. Above them felt tears forming in her silver eyes. She did not understand these creatures. They were so small, so soft, so easily broken, and yet they stood against the like mountains standing against a storm. The evacuation timer on the wall showed 22 minutes remaining. Ho looked at his 7 soldiers and knew they would not last 22 minutes. He looked at the pouring through the corridor and knew there was no hope. But he raised his rifle anyway. Because hope was not the point. The point was the promise. The point was the innocent people running to escape pods. The point was doing what was right, even when it was impossible. For Earth, he whispered, for humanity. And he opened fire once more. The second position fell in 8 minutes. Ho watched 3 more of his soldiers die in those 8 minutes. Their names were Bin, Ho, and little Ha-Jun, who had only been with the squad for 6 months. Ha-Jun was 22 years old. He had told Ho once that he wanted to be a teacher after his military service was done. Now Ha-Jun would never teach anyone anything. Ho pulled back to the third position with his 4 remaining soldiers. One was still alive, dragging his wounded leg behind him. There was also Bo-Ra, a quiet woman with sharp eyes who never missed a shot, and the twins, Wu-Jin and Wu-Sung, who had joined the military together and sworn to protect each other until the end. The third position was at a junction where 3 corridors met. It gave them angles to defend, but it also meant they could come from 3 directions. Ho knew this was not a good place to die. But then again, there was no good place to die. One covered the left corridor. Bo-Ra the right. Twins, you're with me on the main approach. Yes, sir, they said together. Ho checked the evacuation timer. 14 minutes remaining. 14 minutes until the last escape pod launched. 14 minutes until his job was done. He looked at his 4 soldiers and saw the truth in their eyes. They knew what he knew. 14 minutes was forever. 14 minutes was impossible. They would all be dead in 5. It has been an honor, Ho said quietly. The honor was ours, sir, one replied. They came again. They poured from the main corridor in a wave of black metal and red eyes. Ho opened fire and watched 2 of them fall, but more kept coming, always more. Wu-Jin was the first of the 4 to die. A beam caught him in the throat and he dropped without a word. Wu-Sung screamed his brother's name and charged forward, firing wildly. He killed 3 before they cut him down to join his twin on the cold metal floor. No, Bo-Ra cried out, but she kept firing. Tears ran down her face, but her hands stayed steady. She was a soldier until the end. But the end came for her too. A soldier got around her flank and its claws found her back. She made a small sound of surprise and fell forward. Now it was just Ho and one. Sir, one said from behind his barricade, my leg is not working. I cannot retreat, but I can cover you. Go to the escape pods. I'm not leaving you. Sir, please, someone has to survive. Someone has to tell people what happened here. Ho wanted to argue, but before he could speak, the left corridor exploded with soldiers. One turned to face them, firing as fast as he could. He killed 5 before they reached him. Then the darkness took him and Ho was alone. Completely alone. 42 soldiers, all dead, and still 14 minutes on the timer. Ho felt something break inside him. Not his body, though that was wounded in a dozen places. Something deeper. Something that had always been held together by duty and discipline. Now it cracked open, and what came out was not fear. It was rage. Pure, burning, unstoppable rage. He grabbed one's rifle and held one in each hand. He stepped out from behind his barricade and faced the alone. His uniform was torn and burned. Blood covered half his face. His left arm hung at a strange angle, broken somewhere above the elbow. But his eyes were clear, and his hands were steady. "Come on then," he said to the. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the corridor like thunder. "Come and see what a human can do." Up on the observation deck, Princess pressed closer to the glass. She could not believe what she was seeing. The human was alone now. Every single one of his soldiers was dead. The smart thing to do would be to run. Any sensible creature would run. But he was not running. He was walking forward. Breathed, "What is he doing?" "I do not know, Your Highness. I have never seen anything like this." They seemed confused as well. They had expected the human to flee or surrender. Instead, he was advancing toward them, firing both rifles at once. His face showed no fear, only anger, only purpose. The first that reached him swung its massive arm to crush his skull. Ho ducked under the blow, pressed a rifle against the creature's chest, and fired. The fell back with a hole through its heart. Another came from the side. Ho spun and shot it in the face. Another came from behind. He dropped to one knee, letting its claws pass over his head, then shot upward into its throat. He was not fighting like a soldier anymore. He was fighting like a wild animal. Every movement was instinct. Every shot was perfect. The broken bones and bleeding wounds did not seem to slow him at all. Had studied many species in her long life. They lived for hundreds of years, and she had used that time to learn about the galaxy. She knew they were one of the most feared warrior races in existence. She knew they had conquered 100 worlds. And she was watching a single human hold them back. The evacuation timer showed 12 minutes remaining. Ho had lost count of how many he had killed. 10, 20. The corridor was filled with their bodies now, mixed with the bodies of his fallen soldiers. The floor was slick with blood of 2 colors, human red and black. His left rifle ran out of power. He threw it at his face, making the creature stumble, then shot it with his right. But that rifle was running low too. He could feel the power cell dying. A blade caught his side, cutting deep. Ho grunted and spun, killing the attacker with his last shot. The rifle clicked empty. He was out of power. But he was not out of weapons. He drew his combat knife. It was a small blade, barely a foot long. Against 8-foot monsters with metal skin, it was almost nothing. Almost. Ho smiled. It was a terrible smile, full of pain and rage and something else. Something that looked almost like joy. "I'm still here," he said to the. "I'm still standing. What are you going to do about it?" They came at him in a wave. Ho met them with nothing but a knife and his broken body. Watched as the human fought with his bare hands and that small blade. She watched him duck and spin and strike. She watched him take hits that would have killed any, then get back up and keep fighting. She did not understand. Her people had always taught her that survival was the highest goal. That wisdom meant knowing when to fight and when to flee. That preservation of life was sacred. But this human did not seem to care about survival. He cared about something else, something bigger than himself. And in that moment, watching him fight alone against impossible odds, felt something stir in her heart that she had never felt before. The timer showed 10 minutes remaining. Ho was still fighting. He would fight until the last second. He would fight until his body could no longer move. He would fight until death itself had to come and personally drag him away. Because that was what humans did. They fought. Always. No matter what. The knife broke in the chest of the 15th that Ho killed with it. The blade snapped clean off, leaving him with nothing but a metal handle in his bloody hand. He looked at it for half a second, then threw it into the eye of an approaching enemy. The screamed and staggered back. Ho grabbed its fallen weapon and used it to cut down 2 more of its companions before the strange alien rifle ran out of whatever power it used. He was learning. Every second of this battle he was learning how they moved, where their armor was weak, what angles worked best. A human mind was always adapting, always improving, always finding new ways to survive. The timer showed 8 minutes remaining. Up on the observation deck, Princess had stopped trying to understand what she was seeing. She had given up on logic and reason. Instead, she simply watched with something like wonder in her silver eyes. "Your Highness," said carefully, "the last escape pod will leave soon. We should go." "Not yet." "But Your Highness." "I said not yet." His voice was sharp and fell silent. He had served the royal family long enough to know when the princess would not be moved. Could not explain why she needed to stay. She only knew that watching this human had become the most important thing in her life. Everything she had been taught, everything she had believed, was being proven wrong with every passing second. Her people called humans fragile, but she had watched this human take wounds that would have killed a warrior 10 times over. His left arm was broken. His side was cut open. Burns covered half his body. He had lost so much blood that his skin was turning gray. And still he fought. Her people called humans primitive. They said human technology was centuries behind the great races of the galaxy. They said humans were still climbing out of the mud while they were sailing among the stars. But had just watched this human pick up an alien weapon he had never seen before and use it to kill 3 enemies in the span of 5 seconds. He had adapted instantly. He had learned without teaching. He had turned his enemy's strength against them. Her people called humans short-lived. They said a human life was just a blink of an eye compared to the. They said humans could never achieve true wisdom because they did not have enough time. But in this moment, watching this human fight and bleed and refuse to die, saw more wisdom than she had found in all her 200 years of life. She saw the wisdom of courage, the wisdom of sacrifice, the wisdom of giving everything you have for something greater than yourself. Below, Ho picked up a metal bar from the wreckage of a fallen barricade. It was about 3 feet long and heavy as a club, not a proper weapon, but it would do. They were becoming cautious now. They had lost too many soldiers to this single human. They gathered at the edges of the corridor, watching him with their red eyes, waiting for him to fall. "What's wrong?" Ho called out to them. His voice was rough and broken, but it still carried strength. Afraid of one human, the great empire, conquerors of 100 worlds, afraid of one man with a metal stick. One of them snarled and charged at him. It was bigger than the others, probably a leader of some kind. Its 4 arms reached for Ho with claws that could cut through steel. Ho did not run. He stood his ground and waited. At the last second, he stepped to the side and brought the metal bar down on this knee. The joint cracked. The creature stumbled. Ho swung again, hitting it across the face. Then again, and again. The leader fell. The other watched in silence. Their leader, a warrior who had conquered planets, had been beaten to death by a wounded human with a piece of metal. The timer showed 6 minutes remaining. Ho was breathing hard now. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. His body was running out of blood and energy and will. Soon it would fail him completely. But not yet. Not yet. He lifted the bloody metal bar and pointed it at the remaining. There were still dozens of them, maybe 100. He had no chance of killing them all. He knew this. They knew this. But he would make them pay for every inch. He would make them remember this day. He would show them that humans were not prey to be hunted. Humans were not weak. Humans were not fragile. Humans were dangerous. They came at him all at once. They had finally realized that the only way to beat this human was to overwhelm him with numbers. So they attacked in a wave, a wall of black metal and sharp claws and burning red eyes. Ho met them with a scream. Watched as the human disappeared into the wave of enemies. For a moment she thought it was over. She thought they had finally won. Her heart felt cold and empty. But then she saw the wave breaking apart. She saw soldiers flying backward, thrown by the force of the human's blows. She saw the metal bar rising and falling, stained darker with each strike. He was still fighting. In the middle of 100 enemies, completely surrounded with no hope of survival, he was still fighting. Felt something wet on her face. She reached up and touched her cheek. Tears. She was crying. Did not cry often. Their emotions were usually calm and controlled, but something about this human was breaking through all her walls. "He is magnificent," she whispered. Looked at her with concern. "Your Highness." "Look at him, really look at him. Have you ever seen anything like this?" The old guard turned his eyes to the battle below. He had served in the military for 50 years before joining the Royal Guard. He had seen many battles, many warriors, many acts of courage. But nothing like this. "No, Your Highness," he admitted, "I have not." The timer showed 4 minutes remaining. Somehow, impossibly, Ho was still standing. He had lost the metal bar somewhere in the chaos and was now fighting with his bare hands. His broken left arm hung useless at his side. His right arm kept moving, punching and grabbing and throwing. A grabbed him from behind. He threw his head back, cracking its skull with his own. Another grabbed his leg. He twisted and kicked, breaking its grip. Another swung at his face. He ducked and drove his elbow into its throat. Every movement cost him. Every action drained what little strength he had left. His body was running on nothing but willpower now. Meat and bone pushed beyond their limits by a spirit that refused to break. They began to pull back. They had lost half their force to this single human, half their force in exchange for nothing. The escape pods were still launching. The civilians were still escaping. Their mission was failing and they could not understand why. The timer showed 2 minutes remaining. Ho fell to his knees. His legs would not hold him anymore, but his eyes were still clear. His gaze was still focused on the remaining. 2 more minutes, he whispered to himself. Just 2 more minutes. He reached down and picked up a sharp piece of metal from the floor. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something, and as long as he had something, he could fight. Pressed her hand against the glass so hard that it cracked. She was leaning forward, her whole body tense, as if she could somehow help the human through the barrier. "Come on," she whispered. "Just a little longer, please, just a little longer." She did not know when she had started caring so much about this stranger's survival. She only knew that she could not bear to watch him die. Not now, not when he was so close. They watched the kneeling human with something like respect in their red eyes. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had faced 1,000 armies. They had never met anything like this. The timer showed 1 minute remaining. Ho smiled. He could see the escape pods through a gap in the corridor. They were launching one after another, carrying hundreds of innocent people to safety. Children who would grow up, families who would stay together, lives that would continue. Because of him, because of his soldiers, because humans never gave up. 1 more minute, he said, and his smile grew wider. I win. The last escape pod launched with 10 seconds to spare. Ho watched it fly away through the gap in the corridor, a small metal shape carrying precious lives to safety. He felt something in his chest release, something tight and painful that had been holding him together. His mission was done, the promise was kept. He looked down at the sharp metal in his hand, then back up at the remaining. There were maybe 40 of them now. 40 monsters who had come to kill innocent people and had been stopped by one broken human. "Well," Ho said quietly, "now it's just us." The commander stepped forward. It was a massive creature, even bigger than the leader Ho had killed earlier. Its armor was decorated with marks that probably meant something important. Its 4 arms held 4 different weapons, each one designed to kill in a different way. "Human," the commander said. Its voice was like rocks grinding together. "You have fought well, better than any creature we have ever faced. Surrender now and we will give you a quick death." Ho laughed. It was a wet, painful sound, but it was still a laugh. "A quick death, that's your offer?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I don't think I'll take that. You cannot win. You are alone and wounded. We are many and strong." "Maybe." Ho pushed himself to his feet. His legs shook. His whole body screamed with pain, but he stood. "But I'm not done yet, and until I'm done, you don't get to tell me what I can or cannot do." The commander stared at him for a long moment. Then it made a sound that might have been respect. "Very well, human. We will take you the hard way. That's the only way I know." The charged. Up on the observation deck was Gripping's arm so tightly that she was leaving marks on his skin. The old guard did not complain. He understood. He was feeling the same thing she was feeling. This human was about to die. They both knew it. He had done the impossible, held off an army long enough for the escape pods to launch. But now the pods were gone, and he had no reason to hold back. He was going to fight until the end, and the end was coming. Ho ducked under the first swing and drove his sharp metal into its throat. The creature fell, and he pulled the metal free. Another came at him, and he blocked its claws with his broken left arm. The pain was incredible, but he used it. He let the pain make him angry, and he used the anger to kill. 3 more fell before they managed to knock the metal from his hand. Now Ho had nothing. No weapons, no energy, no hope, just his 2 hands and his unbreakable will. They surrounded him. They were careful now, moving slowly, ready for whatever trick he might have left. But there were no more tricks. There was only him. "Human," the commander said again, "this is your last chance. Surrender." Ho looked around at the circle of enemies. He looked at the bodies of his fallen soldiers. He looked at the blood covering the floor and walls and his own body. Then he looked at the observation deck. For the first time he saw her. The princess, standing at the great glass window, watching him with silver eyes full of tears. He did not know who she was or why she was crying, but something about her gaze gave him strength. He turned back to the commander. "You want me to surrender?" He shook his head. "Then you don't understand humans at all. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We fight until we can't fight anymore, and then we find a way to fight some more." He reached down and picked up a fallen's arm. It was still holding a weapon. He pointed the weapon at the ceiling above the... "What are you doing?" the commander demanded. Ho smiled, winning. He fired. The ceiling exploded. Metal and fire came raining down on them, crushing them, burning them, burying them. The corridor filled with smoke and screaming. Ho was thrown backward by the blast, slamming into a wall hard enough to break more of his already broken bones. But he was alive, and they were not. When the smoke cleared, Ho lay in a pile of wreckage. Around him the army was destroyed. Some were crushed under falling metal. Others were burned by exposed power lines. A few were still moving, but they were trapped and helpless. The commander crawled out of the rubble. It was badly wounded, one of its arms completely gone, black blood pouring from a dozen wounds. But it was still alive, and it was moving toward Ho. "Human," it growled, I will kill you with my own hands." Ho tried to move, but his body would not respond. He was finally done. His strength was gone. His will had reached its limit. The commander stood over him, raising its remaining arms for the killing blow. And then something unexpected happened. A beam of light shot through the air and struck the commander in the chest. The creature looked down in surprise at the burning hole in its armor, then fell backward and did not move again. Ho turned his head slowly, painfully, to see where the shot had come from. Princess stood at the entrance to the corridor, holding a rifle she had taken from a fallen soldier. Her hands were shaking. Her face was pale, but her eyes were determined. "I thought we're peaceful," Ho managed to say. "We are," walked toward him, stepping carefully over the bodies. "But some things are worth fighting for." Followed behind her, looking around at the destruction with wide eyes. He had never seen anything like this. He did not think anyone in the galaxy had ever seen anything like this. Knelt beside Ho. Up close she could see just how badly wounded he was. His skin was gray and cold. His breathing was shallow and weak. He was dying. "Stay with me," she said. "Help is coming, stay with me." "The civilians," Ho whispered, "did they escape?" "Yes, they all escaped, because of you." Ho closed his eyes and smiled. "Good, that's good." "Do not close your eyes," grabbed his face, turning him to look at her. "Stay awake, that is an order." "You're not my commander." "I am now, I am claiming you." Ho laughed weakly. "That's not how it works. I am a princess, I make the rules. Looked at, find a medical kit, now." The old guard hurried away. Turned back to Ho, keeping her hands on his face, keeping his eyes focused on her. "What is your name?" she asked. "Ho, Commander Ho." "Ho," she said the name slowly as if memorizing it. "I am, and you are not going to die here, Ho. I forbid it." "Forbid it?" He laughed again, weaker this time. "You can't forbid death." "Watch me." Returned with a medical kit. Began working on Ho's wounds, using every skill she had learned in her 200 years of life. She was not a healer, but she knew enough. She had to know enough. The station shook around them as the warships outside began to retreat. Without their soldiers, they had no reason to stay. The battle was over. And somehow, impossibly, the human was still alive. 3 days passed before Ho opened his eyes again. He woke in a white room filled with soft light. Medical machines hummed quietly around him, their screens showing numbers and lines that meant he was alive. His body felt strange, wrapped in healing foam and connected to tubes that fed him medicines and fluids. He was alive. He should not have been alive, but he was. The first thing he saw when his vision cleared was, she was sitting in a chair beside his bed, her silver eyes fixed on him, her blue skin glowing softly in the white light of the medical room. She looked tired. She looked like she had not slept in days. "You're awake," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Relief, maybe, or something deeper. "How long?" Ho asked. His voice was rough and weak. 3 days. The doctors said you should have died 100 times. They said no creature could survive the wounds you had, but here you are." Ho looked around the room slowly. It was not a human medical bay. The technology was too advanced, too elegant. The walls curved in ways that human architecture did not usually curve. "Where am I?" "A medical ship, my ship actually. I had you brought here after the battle." "Why?" Was quiet for a moment. She seemed to be thinking about how to answer. Finally, she spoke. "I watched you fight, Ho. I watched you from the observation deck. I saw everything." "Everything?" "Everything. I saw your soldiers fall one by one. I saw you refuse to run. I saw you stand alone against an army that should have crushed you in seconds." She leaned forward, her silver eyes intense. "I saw you get shot and stabbed and burned and broken. And I saw you keep fighting, always fighting, never stopping." Ho did not know what to say. He remembered the battle, but it felt like a dream now. A terrible, bloody dream that went on forever. I have lived for 200 years, continued. I have studied 1,000 species. I have read the histories of 10,000 wars, and I have never, ever seen anything like what you did in that corridor. I was just doing my job. No, shook her head firmly. That was not a job, that was something more. That was something I do not have a word for. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars drifted slowly past. They were in space, far from the station where the battle had taken place. My people call humans fragile, she said, looking at the stars. We say you are weak and primitive and short-lived. We pity you. We think we are superior because we live longer and have better technology. She turned back to face him. We are fools. Ho tried to sit up, but his body would not cooperate. Moved quickly, pressing a button that raised the head of his bed so he could see her better. I do not understand humans, she admitted. I do not understand how you can fight like that, how you can suffer like that, how you can die like that for people you have never met. It's called duty, Ho said simply. Duty? She said the word like she was tasting something new. They have duty too. We serve our empire, we follow our laws, but we do not die for strangers. We do not throw ourselves into fire for people we will never know. Then you're missing something important. Sat down on the edge of his bed. She was close now, close enough that he could see the tiny patterns in her silver eyes, the subtle glow of her blue skin. What am I missing, Ho? He thought about it for a long moment. How could he explain something that was so basic to humans? How could he put into words the thing that made humans different from every other species in the galaxy? Purpose, he finally said. We fight because it gives us purpose. We sacrifice because it makes our lives mean something. We die for strangers because that's how we prove that we are more than just animals trying to survive. Was silent, her eyes never left his face. I watched you die in that corridor, she whispered. Again and again I thought you were dead, and each time you got back up, each time you kept fighting. By the end I was crying. I do not cry, Ho. I have not cried in 50 years, but I cried for you. Why? Because I have never seen anything so beautiful. Ho did not know how to respond to that. He had been called many things in his life. Stubborn, brave, stupid, dangerous, but never beautiful. Reached out and touched his face. Her hand was cool against his skin, soft and gentle. I am a princess of the empire, she said. I have been proposed to by kings and emperors and warlords. I have refused them all. None of them were worthy. None of them had the fire that I was looking for. Her hand moved from his face to his chest, pressing lightly over his heart. But you, Ho, you have fire, more fire than I ever thought possible. What are you saying? Smiled. It was a small smile, almost shy, but it lit up her whole face. I am saying that I have claimed you. From the moment you collapsed in that corridor, from the moment I shot that commander to save your life, you became mine. That's not how it works. I told you before, I'm a princess. I make the rules. Ho wanted to argue, but he found that he could not. There was something in her eyes, something in her voice, that made arguments feel pointless. She had made a decision, and he was beginning to suspect that when Princess made a decision, the universe itself bent to accommodate her. What about my people, he asked, my duty to Earth? You can still serve your people, you can still protect your world, but you will do it with me beside you. As your partner, your equal, your queen if you will have me. Queen, Ho laughed weakly, I'm just a soldier. No, leaned down, bringing her face close to his. You are the greatest warrior I have ever seen, the most courageous soul I have ever known, the most worthy man I have ever met, and I will not let you go. She kissed him then. It was a gentle kiss, soft and cool and tasting of starlight. Ho felt something inside him melt, something that had been frozen for a very long time. When she pulled back, her silver eyes were shining with something that looked like love. "He must be mine," she whispered. "That is what I said when I watched you fight. He must be mine, and now you are, forever." Ho looked at this strange, beautiful princess from another world. He thought about everything that had happened. The battle, the blood, the death, the fire, and now this impossible ending to an impossible day. "Forever is a long time," he said. I will live for 1,000 years. That is how long I intend to keep you." "I'm human. I might only live for another 50. Smiled again, and this time there was mischief in her eyes. "Then we will have to find a way to fix that. They have technologies that humans have never dreamed of. I think extending your life will be a worthy challenge." Ho closed his eyes. He was tired, so tired. But for the first time in days, it was a peaceful tiredness. The tiredness of a man who had fought a battle and won. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, I'm yours." Lay down beside him on the narrow medical bed, curling her body around his, being careful not to touch his wounds. "Yes," she said softly, "you are, and I am yours. That is how it will be from now until the stars go dark." And as they drifted off to sleep together, the medical ship carried them through the endless night, toward a future that neither of them could have imagined. A future where human and stood together. A future where fire met starlight. A future where love was born from battle. And somewhere in the hearts of 1,000 warriors, a new fear took root. The fear of what humans could do. The fear of what humans would sacrifice. The fear of the fire that burned in their fragile, beautiful, unstoppable souls. The galaxy would never forget the day a single human held back an army. And neither would the princess who watched him do it.